Many people want to be seen as nice people. And there's a very large industry pushing the idea of enlightenment. And all you need to do really to become enlightened is to maybe meditate, become a nice person. So maybe you adopt the idea of loving kindness or gratitude. You know, the gratitude thing's a big thing, isn't it? Lots of people say their gratitudes in the morning for whatever reason. To be charitable, to be humble. The reasons for adopting those things may be sincere, but very often it's just virtue signalling. And much worse than that, it's actually a denial of their real nature. So, for spiritual and religious folk, the dark side of our nature needs to be suppressed and repressed. You just can't let that out, although you will do. If you've ever been a member of some kind of spiritual organization, you'll find the same competition for prestige, for position, and you'll find bitchiness. And in fact, you can't hide these nasty things that are within us, which I'll get to shortly. They come seeping out through the cracks. So, I've known a number of, in quotes, spiritual people, and every one of them, I can't think of an exception, maybe one or two, but typically I can't think of an exception, where the nastiness comes seeking out through the cracks. So what happens is these people develop a kind of goody two-shoes superego. I'm a nice person, I practice loving kindness and da-da-da. But what they don't tell you is about the bitching that goes on in their little spiritual group or whatever group they might belong to. So these people are very adept at leaving the dark stuff in the dark so it can fester and grow. And there's a lot I could say about that, but the most dangerous people on this planet, the people who cannot see their dark side. I mean, it isn't really a dark side, it's human nature, but we deny it because there are all kinds of pressures on us to be nice, conforming, malleable people. And society does it as well, of course. We're supposed to be productive, successful, pleasant maybe, cooperative. And in the heart of us, we don't want any of that stuff. Or very few people do. So we have this wonderful superego that sits on top of it all, takes in all the stuff that it thinks it might get praise for, might be able to virtue signal, and it leaves all the dark stuff in place so that it can become even more poisonous. Now, a quote from Carl Jung might put this in context. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light. Well, the whole damn spiritual and religious thing is about imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That isn't a very popular thing because, as I've just said, most people tell themselves that they're kind, loving people, or that they're humble, or whatever. They totally deny this dark side of their nature, which really comes from the animal kingdom. So the reality of all our personalities, the bits that we would rather not see, are things like jealousy, cruelty, the tendency to be cruel. Maybe if you were really honest with yourself, you'd like to strangle cats or something. Hatred. Hatred's a given. Envy. as far as Spinoza was concerned, envy was the default state of most people, although very few people are going to admit it. In fact, most people are not going to admit any of this stuff. You know, fear, sarcasm, all these kind of oblique ways of inflicting harm on somebody else. All you have to do really is open your eyes and look at the world. As Thomas Hobbes said, it's all against all. In the main, I mean there may be exceptions, but in the main it's all against all. Somebody will sabotage somebody else's work, maybe, to get a promotion. Any number of things. They'll sell a motor car that they know is about to expire, but they'll sell it if they can for a reasonable amount of money. All against all. The problem that we have is that our superego is so strong. It's been programmed with all these shoulds. You should be kind and loving. You should be productive. You should be humble. You should be pleasant. You should be and all the shouldn'ts. You shouldn't be cruel. You shouldn't be envious. But the problem is all those things are within us, and they never see the light of day, so they just fester and grow. And that's the problem. You might say, well, why not leave all the dark stuff where it is? Well, the problem is because it causes suffering. And the denial of anything causes suffering. The denial of your jealousy will cause suffering because you will just become more jealous. It will fester and grow. Same with your fears. So the only way to deal with this is inner honesty, and a lot of it. The problem is, very often on our own, we can't see the dark stuff that's lurking around in our depths. And maybe we need someone to help with that. I mean, Freud and Jung both had practices that help people do that, because it's very difficult to do on your own. Anyway, the point is that enlightenment, as that quote says, does not become or doesn't come from imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And to be enlightened, I believe anyway, means that we become more whole, more at peace with ourselves. We haven't got the internal wars going on, and that we can deal with life more honestly and in a more powerful way, in truth, because we're looking at reality rather than some fairy tale that we've been sold by the religious and spiritual folk, and even society itself. So very few people are going to look at their dark side and make it conscious, and as a result they'll suffer, but they have a choice.